Welcome to Coaching in Session,
where limits end and growth begins.
Hosted by Michael Rearden.
This is your space to challenge the ordinary,
unlock your potential,
and step boldly into your next chapter.
Your mindset journey continues.
Welcome, Coach Mo, to Coaching in Session. How are you doing today?
Man, I'm doing great. I'm happy to be here.
All right. I'm glad to have you on. I don't think we've ever had a coach of your caliber on where you are a swag coach. And the word swag can mean many different things to many different people. I know when I was growing up, swag was you were that cool guy, right? You had this finesse about you. And I just love this idea that in life, we can have that same type of demeanor, from the mindsets that we have to the clothes that we wear to the persona that we, don every single moment. And this idea of ourself, being able to become swagalicious in a sense, we are going to be doing a lot for the mind today. And I want everyone to prepare to learn just what swag is for you, and then how you help people get into that swag mentality. If you could, Coach Mo, can you tell the world who you are, what you do, and of course, how you help?
Absolutely, Michael. I'm really privileged to be here, man. And, swag, most people think of as, popping your collar, right? Or swag is products. I'm not referencing that. And in particular, a swag coach represents self-awareness, why power, aligned action, and grit. Swag. So I think we all have swag, and I leverage swag as a signal. And here's what I mean by that. I like stories. You like stories? Your audience likes stories, man?
We love stories.
Okay. So one story that I'm going to talk about is how I started a coaching unit at the Department of Justice. Okay. And I didn't realize it then, as what I realize now is I had swag in starting that unit at the Department of Justice where I currently work. Okay, so what that means. So I had this idea of bringing this coaching concept into the department, and naturally you have these thoughts of, can this really be done? You can't do that, Mo. Nah, that's who are you to bring something like this into the Department of Justice? No one's going to listen to that. See, that's the self-awareness piece, knowing that the inner critic is trying to sway me away from my idea, right? But what drove me through to move this forward was my why power, the purpose, reminding myself in real time, no, this organization needs coaching. They need my expertise to help leaders get out of their own way. So that purpose, Michael, gave me energy, bro. It gave me energy to continue to move forward. And how did I move forward? That's the aligned action piece. Because my purpose was highly present, and I'm aware of that purpose, my actions was to not stop, keep moving forward, teach leaders the experience of what coaching can do for them. And that was my driver, to make sure that leaders, decision makers at the highest level that I know can improve my program, experience what coaching was. That was my actions. Grit. Grit was the piece around having the emotional stamina, right? Because no's were coming. There was going to be some no's in this, right? And with no's, we often get frustrated and we quit, or we slow down. That's the grit piece of it, though. Being intentional to know that no's were coming, and I'm going to waver it, and I'm going to keep moving forward. In a nutshell, that's swag. That's swag. And so what I teach my clients, though, is how do you identify when your swag is off, right? So think of it from this viewpoint. When you feel this overwhelming, draining feeling, doubtful, guilt, stress, your swag is off at that moment. You know why? Because you're distracted by the inner critic, that self-doubt that's telling you you're not good enough in that real moment. You lost sense of purpose. You're stagnant, so there's no action. And in moments, you feel you have to grind harder, which ultimately the grind creates more burnout. Your swag is off. So I teach leaders, executives, high performers how to get their swag back. So that's why I'm a swag coach.
I like this idea of breaking it down in those 4 different areas. And the first area I want to bring some attention to, or awareness, just for the use in the same terminology, is this idea of how many people are truly aware of what's going on in their life. I think people have an idea, but I can't tell you how many people would rather stay in the dark, sweep things under the rug, or throw things in the closet. And this awareness comes with possibly a responsibility of taking ownership of one's own life or circumstances, where they have to say, okay, if I'm bringing awareness to an area I want to make an improvement on, I also need to look in the mirror and say that I'm the one who's responsible to make this happen. How do you help people see that awareness when they would love anything more than to avoid it?
It's in the pause, bro. The pause. When you learn how to pause self, there can be self-reflection there. And that's where awareness starts to shape itself within self. All right. We're naturally conditioned in life, regardless of your level of positions and what you're doing, that you gotta go, 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 go. All right. And we're consistently comparing ourselves to the information that's coming through on social media, in our environments. You're looking at ads, you're looking at politics, we're comparing. So we got to go, 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 go. And within the go, we don't slow down, and that becomes our pattern, right? And within that pattern, we generate this narrative thoughts that I'm not good enough. I can't do this. I can't that. And it creates a flawed viewpoint of self that's influenced by the external environment. The pause reels it all back in. When you can define what your pause is. So everyone's pause means something to them personally. It can be a breathing exercise. It can be meditation. It can be listening to music. It can be walking your dog, having your pet. Doesn't matter. But it's a pause. And I love sports, man. I love sports. I was an athlete. I played football, I played in college. And one of the best analogies around the power of pause is the timeout. When things hit the fan in the game, what does the coach do? Timeout. We got to slow their momentum, right?
Mm-hmm.
But in life, we're going. We refuse to call a timeout because of the external pressures that if we call a timeout, we're going to get lapped. That's not true. The timeout is the reset so you can get back in the game and give your best performance. So that's how I would answer that. It's the pause.
Yeah, I like this idea of the timeout metaphor, because we don't necessarily realize that we can take a breather, we can take a break, we could take a pause, and we don't see it as a detriment, versus some people, they feel as if they are getting lapped, as you said, or if they're not doing enough. And this can stem from so many different mindsets, to insecurity, to fear, possibly from a past trauma that they had, right? And everyone's going to have, some level of, fear to something, but we do have to get over that idea of the fear of failure or the fear of rejection. As you said early on, you knew you were going to get some no's when you were going through the coaching program. And that's just the reality. life is going to have a series of yeses and nos. And a lot of people, they would rather just have the yeses. And I wanted to get into this idea of when we're starting to look at like what we're supposed to do in life, or what we're meant to do, or our potential, or our why or our purpose, where it doesn't matter how many no's we get, we stay hungry for that yes.
Absolutely. And it ties back to having that self-awareness. When you have that, your why is naturally closer to you, and you see it, and that's what you're striving for, right? I think in this environment that we're in, so many of us are conditioned to think it's the externals, more money, more cars, bigger house, all of these external things, right? Not that they're not important, they're very important. It makes life better. I get that, right? But when it's the external driver, you achieve it, guess what? You still feel a little empty, right? But when you when you have that why, man, and you know what your purpose is, there's this energy that's unexplainable, that people just feel it. Like the work that I do internally from a coaching viewpoint and externally with my clients outside of the Department of Justice. Bro, they feel my energy. It's like, man, this dude loves coaching. I wanna be a part of that. I wanna just talk to him. Every time, you know what? Every time I talk to Mo, I just feel better after I get out of a conversation with him. It's the energy. That energy comes from my passion, my why. My why. And I remember when I first discovered coaching, right? Right before I had lost a job. I was an HR director and we lost our funding, and it hit me like, I never lost a job. I'm a high performer. How can this happen to me? Nah, this isn't right, right? And I'm in this self-pity, bro. And I remember I had no direction. I felt lost. I felt discouraged. And then, as I shared, I was introduced to coaching, and it was like this light bulb came on. It was like this new energy was formed that I just knew that that's something I wanted to do, to serve people in this society and in this world while I'm on this planet. I just knew, I just feel it. That's the energy of what I'm talking about. When you can figure out what that why is, but you have to pause. You got to pause. And people sometimes become very reluctant to pause, and they think it's very hard. Well, I don't know what I really want to do. I'm not sure. Well, pause and think about it. I don't got time. And then you're in that loop. You're in the loop. And they wonder why things haven't changed in years, decades, because you're in your own loop. Pause, ask the question, and and let God bring that, reveal it to you. But we're so distracted that we can't. And so we don't discover our purpose and our why, and we're just stuck.
Mm-hmm. And there's so many people, especially here in America, who have no idea what they would like to do with their whole entire life, right? And I'm not saying that we can't have different seasons of our life, right? You were once a director. I was once a teacher, right? Like who would have thought we would be coaches today? It was naturally just the ebb and flow of how things have developed, where our mindsets were, and then the overall why or the goal of what we wanted to be of service in to the world. We wanted to give back to some way, right? To help people understand that they have the potential to be more than what they are. Now, I just think of the people who are looking at that exterior, right? We look at the materialism, we look at the cars, the jewelry, the clothes, the homes, and it's easy to get caught up in that, because that is what we see predominantly from our social medias to our favorite sitcoms and things like that. We have a wanting eye. And the wanting eye is more for the material things, because more people would probably want a good deal from their favorite store or a good meal at an expensive restaurant than they would want for them to succeed in something that they put effort into, their career, their family, their relationships. And this wanting idea, of course, we can pause for a second to figure out where our priorities lie, but we have to possibly look at the culture where we are naturally developed into this idea of being consumers. Is there a way to mitigate that, maybe starting from a young age, or if we are now adults, can we start to do things to kind of cope that into a different direction where we are focused more on our why after we took the pause?
I think, and I'm going to go right back again to it, man. I think it really comes down to self-awareness, because in society, wherever we're brought up, we're conditioned into a certain environment, and you adapt those behaviors of your environment, right? And there's signals within that environment that's telling you if you like it or you don't, right? And when you get to that age, let's say 16, 17, 18 years old, right? There's signals in that environment where it's telling you, you're experiencing signals from the environment that's telling you, you know what, I want more for myself, or you know what, I don't want to do mom's business. I want to do this over here. Those are the initial signals. And then the real question is, are you aware of what those signals are? And do you have the courage to explore those signals? That's the key right there. Because see, I grew up in the hood, right? In the Bay Area, San Francisco, right? My early age, and then moved over to Oakland, right? And early on, I love playing football in the parking lot with the kids in the neighborhood. That's what I loved. But you know what was surrounded by us? Gangs, drugs, all of that stuff, right? But there was a signal inside me that said, you know what, man, I like football. I want to explore that some more, right? And so that led me to playing high school football. That's when I first got really involved in organized football. But it was the signal that just told me, in a way, it's God, the spirit, however you want to define it. But it's always communicating to us in one way or another. And you have to have self-awareness to acknowledge the signal that you're feeling, that there's a different path that you can take. Now, do you have the courage to explore it, or are you gonna succumb to the groupthink of the environment that you're in? Because that's a challenge within itself. Because you're gonna have people that say, "Well, who do you think you are that you can be better than us and go do that? You're supposed to be here and do this when what we're doing." And it exists within your family. It exists within the neighborhood. It exists all around us. And how do you break that? When your signal is telling you in yearning for, I want more, I want to do that. But then there's this other element. It's called the inner critic, the fear, the ego. And it's saying to you silently, oh, man, you can't do that. You do that, people are going to be thinking that you think you're better than them. And then you got to deal with that. Do you really want to deal with that? And just stay with the crowd. Or mom and dad, they're lawyers and they want you to be a lawyer. They invested all of this money for you to go to college to be a lawyer. But your heart is really telling you, I don't want to be a lawyer. I want to be an entrepreneur. And then this signal is telling you man, I really want to do this over here. But then it takes courage. It takes grit. It takes heart to tell your parents, Mom, Dad, I know how much you enjoy being lawyers, but I don't want to be a lawyer. I want to be this. And there might be some backlash to that. No doubt. No doubt. But at the end of the day, you got to stay true to self. And that's where your passion comes from. And I think that's what young people need to learn. That's having that courage to stay true to self in whatever that is. And then when you learn to do that, that's where you start to develop passion. You start to understand what that why is.
Yeah, it's all this idea. It seems like in the order, courage, signal, and then the idea of grit. I know for when I was in college and I remember going to my mom in the beginning, I was doing business finance and she was like, sure, good career. You're going to make some money doing business finance accounting. I said, yeah, I know I will. And I had some internships and I was making good money for my age. And I went in my second year doing accounting and I literally just saw my life flashing before my eyes and it was miserable. I was like, I can't do this, right? So I was trying to figure out, well, what do I do? And I remember, I was really good at, like teaching and I enjoyed teaching and coaching. And I said, well, I think, being a teacher would be good. So I went through the process, became a teacher, for years. And then one of the things I saw eventually, I saw teachers retiring. They spent 30, 40 years in school and I saw what they have created, right? It was a legacy for sure. I'm not going to belittle that in any means, but I said I wanted more. I wanted more than just one school. I wanted more than just with the 500 kids that you will probably interact with, in a given school year. I wanted to be more global. So I said, what can I do? And I said, coaching is a great way to have impact. And I also saw the need for it because one of the things I saw during the graduation periods of school when the kids were leaving, whether it be from elementary, middle school, or high school, I saw just how unequipped that they were for the real world. And this is not to say that all of them weren't ready, but the majority of them could use some more guidance, could use some more help. And I know you mentioned earlier when people, they speak to you, they go, oh my goodness, I feel so much better. I feel maybe so much more, clear on what I need to do. And this is this idea of coaching and mentorship and how powerful it can be. And I wanted to, get your take on this idea of getting a mentor, getting a coach, and how it can truly expand someone's view. And then not only that, but propel them further so much quicker.
Man, I love this conversation because coaching, it really funnels the self-discovery process. It really does, right? Often more times than not, we get in our own way and don't know why we're in our own way. We're just in our own way. It's because of the pattern that the autopilot pattern that you're in. The self-sabotaging, certain fears that show up that you're unaware that they're present, but they're there and you're unaware of it. But it's the pattern in how you deal with it. And it just continues to repeat itself, right? And I think what coaching really brings is this self-discovery process to help you recognize the pattern. And it's a confidential space between you and the client or the coach and the client. And you're just open without judgment. And we're just present. And we're discovering these patterns that might be holding you back that you didn't even know existed. And you were just in autopilot, not knowing you were in autopilot. Until you start talking to a coach and it was like, hey, are you even aware of this pattern? No. Oh my goodness. So this is why every time I get close to getting a promotion, I don't get it because I've been self-sabotaging myself through the certain language that I bring up when I get close to landing a job. I don't know, I'm making something up right now, but self-sabotage can be part of the pattern that goes unnoticed that's been preventing you from taking steps in your career for decades. And you never pinpointed why. Why haven't I gotten ahead? Because also it goes back to what I said earlier about the pause. The coaching helps teach you the techniques to pause, to slow your mind down in real time. And when you can do that, man, there's so much weight lifted. Your leadership gets so much lighter. You're not even focused on things that you were focused on before, right? And I think one of the most powerful things that I incorporate in my coaching with my clients is gratitude, gratitude thoughts. And I'm sure you do the same, man. You teach people about gratitude. That's the single most powerful action that literally takes nothing off of your plate to do anytime. Anytime. And I want to throw a tip out there because I'm all about giving value, right? We're in this society where it's negative, 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 negative. Billboards, politics, social media, doesn't matter. It's just coming into the consciousness, negative, 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 negative. To the certain point, it creates a drain, stress, triggers, anger. What do you have to offset that with positivity that's coming into your mindset? What are you doing to combat that? Most people are, because they're conditioned to be in their patterns, nothing. Continue to absorb all the negativity. So I teach people to have gratitude thoughts. And here's a simple way to manipulate your mind to have gratitude thoughts. We all go to the bathroom. We all have to go to the bathroom. Every time you go to the bathroom, have a gratitude thought. That's it. I don't care what the thought is, just make it gratitude. And so let's break that down a little bit further. How long does it take to have a gratitude thought? Second, if that long, right? So, and how many times you go to the bathroom? Let's just say, let's keep it simple. 5 times in a 12-hour day while you're awake. Go to the bathroom 5 times. So I'm asking you to commit 5 seconds in a day to have a gratitude thought. Do that. I'm not even going to say 7 days. Let's do it 5 days. So I'm asking you to commit 5 seconds a day for 5 days, 25 seconds towards gratitude. That's it. Continue with your life. Commit to that for 30 days, for a month. That's it. That's all I'm asking. Come back to me and tell me what's changed. Bro, you will be surprised, bro. You'll be surprised. It's like, oh my gosh, man. The things that used to bother me isn't bothering me anymore. Why do you think that is? I think it was because of the gratitude thought. But it was hard. What do you mean it was hard? Well, I would forget. Okay. You would forget. Okay. So tell me this. When you did forget, what did you do? Well, I remembered that I forgot. Okay. So then when you remembered that you forgot, what did you do? I had a gratitude thought. That's the most important thing. You had the awareness to remember that you forgot. So then when you identified that you forgot, guess what you did? You had a gratitude thought. That's the learning. That's what I want you to do. Continue the pattern. And so they'll do that for like 2 months, right? And then we'll meet up again. Something's happening, whatever, right? And I was like, well, what's different? You know what? I stopped doing the gratitude thoughts. So what do you need to do? I need to get back on my gratitude thoughts. That's the single most thing that coaching can bring to people, bro. And you know this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure you know this. You've seen your clients get those light bulb moments and just transform right before you. And that's just one simple strategy that I use. But that's the power of what we do. And I love it. And that's why I'm passionate about it.
Especially if you do it at work. If you work a Monday through Friday job, if you go to the restroom, if you can take some extra time there, you might be a little bit more grateful. It's like 1 second, maybe like I'll take a couple of minutes. I don't have to get back to work so quick. And that right there can be a powerful thing. I know when people, they start to, become more grateful and they become more aware of who they want to be, they become more ambitious to doing what needs to get done. Maybe it's going to the gym more. Maybe it's making more calls. Maybe it's, spending more time in the evening, growing their business, whatever it be, right? And they might come to a point where they are literally at the end of their 24 hours. And they're like, man, like, where else am I going to squeeze some time? Of course, they might look at, maybe taking away some of their fun time, maybe sacrificing a little bit of time somewhere where they shouldn't, whether it be family or career. And they get to the point where they might be doing quite a bit. And they're at that point of burnout where they're like, man, like, I want to keep going. I want to change. I know what I want to do. I understand this, but it's just like, I feel like I got so much stress and so much anxiety. I'm burning out. And if I keep going, I'm going to keep on spinning the wheels. And I feel like I'm going to stop if I don't do something. Of course, yeah, I can pause. But, this burnout is, something where people, they can hit it. And if they don't know how to manage it, they're going to, be weeks or months behind because they didn't know how to navigate through that. And I know what we do as coaches, helping people through that burnout is so important. And I wanted to get your take on burnout and how you help people through it.
I think I have a different approach to burnout. And my approach to burnout is the inner pressures that people carry ultimately leads to the burnout. It's the judgments, the second guessing, the worry, the over functioning, the decision fatigue. See, over time, Michael, that creates what I call energy leaks, right? You naturally show up as this authentic being that's really, you know, a good guy, good woman, all of those different things, right? Until you feel like you have to defend your viewpoint. You have to prove your worth, right? Over a long duration of time, that's slowly pulling away from your energy, right? Each judgment that you carry around, like, I got to prove myself. Think about that. Every day you show up to work, you got to prove yourself for 365 days, for a full year. By month 7, 8, you're starting to feel the drain of it because your judgment of the inner critic is telling you, I gotta go, I gotta go, I gotta go, I gotta go. And then the after effect is the burnout. So one of the things that I was able to do and create was a burnout mirror. It's a 5-minute assessment that really spits out an archetype of the type of burnout that you may be experiencing. And it's all derived from the judgments that you carry of self. And it's really simple. It's nothing that you have to over examine, but it's just to start the conversation about self of what you're experiencing. So, people can find that at the innerarenaLeadership.com/burnout-mirror. That's simple. innerarenaLeadership.com/burnout mirror. And it's a free assessment, takes about 5 or 10 seconds, and it'll spit out archetype of what type of burnout you're carrying. And that's it. And if you want to talk about it, of course, you can always reach out to me too.
I know when it comes to coaching, it's always a labor of love, right? It's this idea that we want to help everyone we can. And of course, there's always going to be, different strokes for different folks. And I say that I'm not everyone's cup of tea. This is why I created Coaching in Session. I don't create Coaching in Session for simple, I needed something to do, right? Like I'm retired and I just needed something to do with my time. No, I knew that there was a need for coaches, and I wanted to create a platform where people can find that flavor of coach that was for them. And I just love this idea of, again, that swag coach. And I can't tell you how many people just like that. Like, I just like the feel of that. I just like that lore where they're like, this is unique. This is something for me, because not everyone is quiet in life. Some people are not like, all right, I'm just going to do what I have to do. I'm going to tiptoe. I'm going to just, follow the status quo. Some people like to be loud. And I remember there was actually a coach that was mentoring someone. It was a woman who was an entrepreneur, and she had this coach, and she was making great money. She made her first $1 million, and she wanted to do more. And she goes up to the mentor and she asks, I want to do more, and it feels like I'm stuck, like I can't get through. And the coach and the mentor, she just looked at her and says, baby, you're not loud enough yet. Right? You're walking too softly, meaning she was, being too cautious. She was, not putting herself out there enough. Like whatever she had to do, the coach could see that. And this idea of swag can be that as well. It could be this idea of the self-awareness, the why, the awareness, the grit, all of that, right? To create that foundation, that platform, but then to also give this, idea that we don't have to be just these, silent walkers in life. We can choose to live pronounced. And I know sometimes the limelight might be scary. It might feel as if we shine and someone else doesn't shine, we should feel bad because we are achieving. And I'm not here to say that you should be looking at other people and saying that you should be less than them. What I'm saying is that you shouldn't allow yourself to be less because other people are not choosing to be more. And this is all to say that there's an opportunity for you today to, reach out to Coach Mo to learn more about how he can help you, how he can look at some of the areas of your life to see how he can, bring some insight, see the patterns, bring some level of improvement, and to help you be more courageous, right? This idea where we don't necessarily see our blind spots quite well. Even in the car, when you look over your shoulders, you can see a little bit, but there's always that fear. Is there a car there without their headlights at nighttime? And you want to make sure that there isn't a car there so you're not getting into these accidents and pitfalls in life. And so this is why I've found coaching to be paramount. It's so essential in our world today, where we need someone who can have our back, who can support us, who can be our biggest cheerleader, especially when sometimes we think our friends are going to be our friends, yet we tell them our dreams and they're going to be maybe some of the greatest naysayers. So it's a very astounding thing in our world today, where sometimes the friends we think we have are really just anchors in our life. But, Coach Mo, if you could, can you give us some final words, some final thoughts, and then please share your website where people can find you, reach out?
Absolutely. I think I really believe this, Michael, that everything starts within self first. Wherever you're trying to strive to in life, you have to pause. You have to, right? Because within the pause, there is so much understanding of self that you can obtain. Well, you just got to slow down. And we got to ask ourselves those questions. Why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling in this moment? And what actions do I need to take to move forward? That's how you discover your why and your purpose. Because then with that, you're unstoppable. You're unstoppable. The most successful people in this world, at one point, they discovered their why and their purpose, and they went after it. And I think we all have that ability, regardless of what your circumstance is right now, whether it's at a job you don't like, whether it's trying to play a sport, it doesn't matter. There's a way through your purpose and understanding your why that's going to drive you toward that end goal. And I think that's what we all need. And it's okay to pause. And trust me on this, and I say it again, within the pause, now throw in a gratitude thought. That's it. That's it. And you define your pause. Maybe it's listening to music. Maybe it's going on a walk. Maybe it's just reading a book. Just define it and own it and throw a little gratitude thought to it and see what happens. Thank you for allowing me to share. I can be found at MauriceMabry.com, which is MoriceMabry.com. On my website, it's just, there's so many tools and resources there. So I invite people to visit me there, or my LinkedIn. You can find me there, LinkedIn at Morice Mabry. That's a good place. And then when you do go to my website, I have a phenomenal blog, leadership blog. It's really about leading self, and just some great information about what we're talking about today, about pausing, judgment, and things of that nature. So I'm really thankful and appreciative for being here, Michael, and thank you again for reaching out.
Of course, and I'm going to make it easy for everyone. All the links are right down below, including your socials, so people can follow you on their respective platforms. You might be a LinkedIn guy, you might be something else, you might be like like to do it old school way, look at the websites. So all of that's going to be right down below. Learn more about how Coach Mo can help you out, and then begin this idea of implementing SWAG into your life. So thank you so much, Coach Mo, for coming on today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.